Welcome to the Unapologetically Unstoppable podcast. I'm your host, Jeanette Peterson. And on this podcast, we talk about how to partner with the Holy Spirit with your business and how to grow businesses with practical tips and tricks. Get ready. Here we go. Hey, girl. Hey. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about the Michael Todd Overflow series. Michael Todd is a preacher that is out in Oklahoma, Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I have been following him on and off for a couple of years. And I am in this series that me and my husband watch on occasion. He's not a regular pastor. We just watch sometimes, to a series called Overflow. And I was watching it last night and it was so good. And it reminded me of something that I wanted to talk to you about because I was like struggling with what I was going to podcast about, but last night was just so clear to me that there is something that's happening in the kingdom of revival of sorts, and I want to just give you the notes that I took from his sermon. One, because it's a great series. And okay, let me give you the background. The background of the series is like talking about the overflow of milk and honey, the overflow of our cups runneth over, the overflow of the abundance of the kingdom that God talks about in the Bible. Okay. This does not necessarily mean financial. It can, but it's just talking about the abundance of overflow, whatever that means for you in this season of life, right? Okay. So he was talking about going through what that looks like, how to sustain it, how to create it, how to get in line with it. And this episode, I'll call it this sermon, this number 7, I think it was 6 or 7, he was talking about getting in line with the overflow and the vision that God has for us. And I feel like this is what I needed to hear. So I'm going to also share this. He was talking about that sometimes we see something and we're not looking at it through the lens of God. Okay. What does that mean, Jeanette? That means we're not looking at it from a place of, okay, God is abundant. God has all of these things. God made these promises. God told Abraham his children would be more than the stars, right? He said that. Yet he still asked him to kill his only son that he took forever to give to him, right? He still asked for that sacrifice. So, pause. When you think about the sacrifice that you need to give to God, that you are willing to give up for the King of the universe, what is that thing that God is asking you to give up? I know what mine was because I was making it an idol, right? And maybe, I don't know, Abraham's situation, maybe Abraham was making Isaac an idol. Maybe he was just so grateful that he had Isaac that he was just putting him as an idol and on the throne where God was supposed to be. And so God was like, I want you to give that to me. Give that up for me. And so he tried. He didn't try. He walked in faith. He walked in faith that he said, okay, God wants me to give this up and I'm going to do it because God is telling me to. And then he saw the lamb, right? Okay. 1, what is God asking you to give up and to stop making an idol over him? Because that is going to stop your overflow. If there's anything that you are putting above God, I don't care if it's your kids, I don't care if it's your business, I don't care if it's your husband, he will not give you the correct amount of overflow. You may be prosperous, you may have some margin, but he's not going to bring the rain if you're not giving God his position of authority over your life, your business, your everything. He needs to be number 1. Okay? And then number 2, what is the thing that God has promised you, right? God promised Abraham that he was going to number the stars with his kids. I've gotten some promises over my life. God told me I was going to speak on stages. He told me I was going to do this and that and all of these things, right? Has it come to pass? No, not yet. I've spoken on 0 stages, except for the one that I made for myself, which I don't think that's what he meant. Okay. So let's be real though. What is that promise that God has for you? And is it so big and so far that you don't think that it's even possible for you because you know who you are? Because there was a time where I was like, there's no way that this could be for me. This big dream, this big calling, this big house on the hill, this big whatever it is can't be for me, Jeanette from Marietta, Georgia, who used to smoke and drink and drive and do all this other bad, sinful stuff, right? That can't be for me. How could God ever use me? I went to church drunk one time and I was totally disrespectful to the God who created the universe. Yet, he has given me grace and has given me love and has shown me what it looks like to follow him in a way that is to honor him. Obviously, I don't do that. Those stupid kid things. But I am not perfect. Far from it. And I've never done this Christian life the right way. I was not the good girl necessarily, right? And so what if what if that thing is for you? What if that thing is the thing that God is wanting for you, okay? And then number 3, what if you change your mindset to the things that you know that God says are true, which is he's the king of abundance. He loves you no matter what. He will never leave you or forsake you. If he is for you, who can be against you? He works out all things for the good of those who love him, which is you. You cannot make a mistake. You can't be so tied to what if, and not make a move. What if God is asking you to just make the next move? What if God just wants you to make a move? What if God just wants you to be obedient? What if God is just waiting for you to take a few steps and for him to show up? What if God is waiting for you to be at the end of your rope because that's where he begins? What if that's what it is? So what if you turn your head? He did this, Michael Todd did this lovely visual in the first 10 minutes. So if you want to catch the thing, do the thing. But what if you just turn your head and start looking from a different angle of what God has for you and say, okay, if I'm on this side of it like God is, and if I borrow the mind of Jesus and I borrow his faith and I'm being as faithful as those of the hall of faith, the Abrahams, the Elijahs, the Cains, right? What if what if you had that faith? What if God said that those things were true and you believed them? Not just like, oh, yeah, it's in the Bible. That's for her, but that's not for me. What if you believed that he said that to you? What if he whispered in your ear, I have this promise for you, and I'm waiting for you to turn to be obedient. I'm waiting for you to finally let go of what Sally Mae thinks and do the thing that I've called you to do. What if he's waiting for you to say, I fully surrender and I give this up because I want you more than I want money or clout or whatever else? What if he's calling you into something scary, like this podcast for me? What if he's calling you into something scary, like going to Africa? I met a girl who was like, yeah, I just met this girl in a coffee shop and she was going to Africa to be a missionary. And 2 weeks later, I went too for 6 months. What does your yes to Jesus look like? What does that obedience look like? He talked about Michael Todd. He talked about in Numbers where they were all about to go to the promised land. They were with Moses and they were like about to go to the promised land and they were scouting, right? It was Joshua and Caleb and they were scouting with the other people, all the leaders of every tribe that went on this mission, right? So they're out there scouting, and they're looking and they're like, okay, this is the land that God has promised us. God has made you that promise. This is the land that God has promised, right? And so all of the people, except for them, said, there are giants there. Actually, Caleb and Joshua said, yeah, there's giants there. They agreed. There's giants there. There is a land of milk and honey. They agreed upon that. It is overflowing. The grapes are huge. The things that are there are so big and so beautiful, and I can't wait to get there. But this is where they differed. Two of them, Joshua and his friend Caleb, Joshua and Caleb, said, but God, but God, but we can overtake the giants because God promised us this place. I don't know how we're going to do it. That's none of my business. That's God's business. I saw what he did with that Red Sea. It's time for us to go take this land. But the other people were like, there are giants there. They're going to squish us. They know that they can take us. But how can you be in their head? What is stopping you? What is that mindset that's stopping you and that's saying, oh, but not me? If God said yes, you, then yes, you. It's time to pick up your mat and walk and go do the thing that God has been calling you to do. And I needed that message last night, so I'm giving it to you today. Because I needed to be reminded that God is with me, God is for me, no one can stand against me. The devil is a liar and he's under my feet. Things are already ordered in the way that they're supposed to be ordered, and I'm just walking out their steps. And as long as I'm obedient and I keep walking, how many lives will be saved through my obedience? I don't know. How many more blessings can happen because of my obedience? I don't know. But I can tell you how many will happen if I don't be obedient. 0. If I'm unobedient, nothing will get people into the kingdom. I will be a failure in the kingdom, in the eyes of the kingdom. I will go to heaven, and Peter will say, so you remember how God asked you to do this, and you didn't do that. And you knew. It wasn't like you didn't hear him. You heard, and you disobeyed there, and you disobeyed there, and then you were mad at God, and you kept asking him, God, will you bring me this thing? God, will you deliver me? God, will you do this? But you didn't make a move. What about that? What about that? It's time for you to make a move. It's time for you to order your steps. It's time for you to get in line with God's calling over your life. And if you don't know what that is, then you need to be talking to God, first of all. You can talk to me too. We can talk about this. We can get this in order. I promise you we can. This is getting kind of long. I'm sorry. But I want you to know that if God has called you, it's up to him to bring the rain. But you got to change your mindset. You got to try and change your outlook. And you got to do what nobody else has done in a way that nobody else has ever done it, because that's what God is calling us to. Let's go, girls. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. Go ahead and leave a review to let everybody else know how much this episode has impacted you. And you know what? I would love to get to know you even better. So go ahead and send me a DM over on Instagram at Jeanette.Peterson, or come to my free group at JeanettePeterson.com/group. I'll see you guys over there.